They thought locking them away would silence the screams. But in the halls of Pennhurst Asylum, the walls remembered everything. I'm going to tell you a story the government tried to bury. About a girl who walked in through the front gates of Pennhurst in 1975 and never truly came out. Maria Thompson was only 18 when she started working at the Pennhurst State School and Hospital, what they called an asylum for the feeble-minded and epileptic. But what it truly was a cage for the unwanted. The first time Maria walked in, smell hit her like a wall bleach. Urine, something burning. The walls were damp. The floor? Covered in tracks of filth. Children lay on mattresses, naked, arms restrained. One child, no older than 6, was mumbling to the wall, chewing his own fingers to the bone. A nurse laughed and said, "Oh, that. He's been doing that since they removed his tongue." Maria's hands shook, and that's when it happened. She turned toward the corner crib and saw a girl, strapped down, eyes wide, body still. No breath, no movement, just still. An attendant passed by and casually said, "She stopped breathing this morning. We just haven't had time to bag her yet." Maria vomited on the floor. She should have run. Maria began working night shifts. It was quieter, but darker. Literally, many hallways had no working lights. She carried a flashlight and a small cross her grandmother gave her. One night, she passed a hallway where no patients were kept any more Hall C. The place had been shut after multiple suicide cases in 1962. Yet she heard giggling, low, childlike, but wrong. She peeked in. Empty beds, empty cribs. And then under the last mattress, the fabric moved. She bent down, pulled it slightly. "You'll be next," whispered a voice from the spring coils. She dropped the flashlight. It flickered. On the wall behind her, words were scrawled in brown-red filth. "She's in the vents now." That night, Maria refused to sleep. She wasn't sure anymore if the patients were the sick ones or if something else was feeding on all of them. There was a restricted area in Pennhurst that even staff avoided ward AI, where outdated lobotomies had been performed in the 40S and 50S. But one night, a patient named Ray escaped. Maria and an orderly named Jenkins were told to check Ward A in case he wandered in. The hallway there was colder than the rest. Paint peeled off like dead skin. Rusted metal tools lay on trays. An old dentist-style chair sat in the middle, with dried blood still under the leather. Ray wasn't there, but someone else was. A man with a dented skull, no eyelids, and wires wrapped around his fingers. He stared at Maria, didn't blink. Suddenly, Jenkins screamed. Something had yanked him into the back room. Maria ran in. Jenkins was strapped to a table, screaming, sobbing. The thing was inserting a rusted metal rod into his eye socket. Crunch. Pop. Gurgle. Jenkins didn't scream anymore. Maria backed away, tears streaming, hand over her mouth. The man turned toward her, but vanished into the dark as if he was never there. One patient, a 16-year-old girl named Alice, had been in isolation for years. Non-verbal, violent. She would rock herself, humming broken lullabies. One day, Maria peeked into her cell. Alice was chained to the floor, surrounded by her own hair, ripped from her scalp. Her wrists were raw from metal cuffs. Her eyes had no white, just clouded black, like ink poured in water. She began to sing. Maria tried to approach. Alice suddenly lunged, headbutted the wall until her skull split open. Blood gushed like a geyser. She laughed, L-U-G-H-E-D, while cracking her own teeth on the concrete. Then screamed one final time. I let her in. Now she wants you. That night, Maria began to hear humming in her sleep. The same lullaby, over and over. Pennhurst had a network of underground tunnels, once used to move corpses discreetly. Staff stopped using them after workers began disappearing. But Maria had no choice. A patient went missing, Thomas, 12 years old, last seen near Ward B's basement. Maria went down alone. The tunnel was suffocating, wet walls, pipes dripping, air thick with mold, and something else, like rotten meat. She followed the dragging marks on the floor, and then she saw him. Thomas, hunched, head tilted.
His mouth wide open, stitched shut with black thread.
He raised his hand, not to wave, but to point behind her. Maria turned slowly. Something ancient, bone-thin, with twisted legs and fingers like needles stood there, upside down on the ceiling, head facing backward. Its face was stitched into a permanent smile. It screeched and lunged. She ran. She didn't look back, but she heard Thomas scream behind her. Not with sound, but with bones snapping and lungs collapsing. Maria tried to report what she'd seen, but the administration laughed it off. Days passed, then weeks. One morning, she noticed a new patient on the roster, patient X311. No name, no age, no diagnosis. She was told to deliver food to his room. When she entered, she froze. The room was empty, except for a mirror. In the mirror, her own reflection blinked, and then smiled without her. The door slammed shut. Scratches appeared on her arms, deep and burning. On the wall, the words scratched in nails, "Why you, Yoix 311 NOW." Maria collapsed. In 1982, abuse allegations finally reached the public. Families stormed the gates. Protesters clashed with guards. The patients, they rioted. Years of silence now roared. Metal beds turned into weapons. Chained children gnawed off ears. A staff member was impaled on a mop handle. Maria saw the man from the lobotomy room again. Only now he walked tall, face stretched into 3 mouths. He grabbed a nurse and slammed her head into the wall until her jaw detached. In the chaos, Maria ran. She didn't stop until she was outside the gates. She never went back. 50 years later, Maria is an old woman now, invited back for a ghost tour documentary on Pennhurst. She hesitates, but returns. They descend into the tunnels again. Only this time, Maria doesn't speak. She walks directly to a wall and points. The camera crew watches in horror, because on that wall is a cage. Inside, a skeletal figure with Maria's name carved in bone. Maria turns slowly, face blank. She never let me leave. Suddenly, the lights go out. The last audio. Screams. And then, giggling. They say Pennhurst is abandoned. They say the screams are just wind in the tunnels. But they're wrong. She's still there, waiting for the next volunteer.